For centuries, stories have circulated about giant human skeletons unearthed across America, some measuring over 7 feet tall, buried in ancient mounds and caves. But why don't we hear about them today? Were these accounts exaggerated, or has history been deliberately rewritten? In this video, we dive into the forgotten newspaper reports, eyewitness testimonies, and hidden archaeological discoveries that point to a massive cover-up. From the Smithsonian's alleged involvement to eerie findings in the Mississippi Valley, this is more than myth, it's a mystery history tried to erase. Join us as we uncover the shocking truth behind the Lost Giants of America. Lost Giants of America. The biggest cover-up in human history, a deep dive. For centuries, scattered legends, newspaper reports, and archaeological oddities have whispered a tantalizing possibility that ancient giants once roamed the lands we now call North America. According to a fringe but increasingly popular theory, these beings were not mythological, but real. Even more controversial is the claim that mainstream institutions, particularly the Smithsonian Institution, have deliberately suppressed or destroyed the evidence to preserve a conventional narrative of human history. This idea has captivated alternative historians, researchers, and conspiracy theorists alike, who argue that this suppression constitutes the biggest cover-up in human history. Let's explore the origins, claims, supporting evidence, institutional responses, and cultural significance of the Lost Giants of America theory. 1. The origins of the giant mythos. The concept of ancient giants is not new. Many Native American tribes have oral traditions that describe towering, powerful beings who lived long before the current age of humanity. The Paiute legends of Nevada, for instance, tell of the Ctach, a race of red-haired giants who were fierce, cannibalistic enemies of the Paiute ancestors. The Choctaw spoke of the Nahalo, giant white-skinned men who lived in the land before their ancestors. The Iroquois referenced stone giants and even great wars with these beings. These stories were often dismissed by early anthropologists as symbolic or mythic representations of natural events or cultural memories of warfare. But some argue these legends point to real beings, now lost to history. 2. 19th century discoveries, giant skeletons in American soil. In the 1800s and early 1900s, hundreds of newspaper articles across the United States reported discoveries of oversized skeletons, often in burial mounds. These mounds, spanning the Mississippi Valley and Ohio River regions, were created by ancient Native American mound-building cultures like the Adena and Hopewell. Here are a few notable reports. New York Times, 1885, Tioga Point, Pennsylvania. A burial mound unearthed skeletons measuring over 7 feet tall with unusually large skulls. San Diego Union, 1895. Miners allegedly discovered a cave full of giant human skeletons in the Yosemite Valley. The St. Paul Globe, 1897. Reports of a skeleton over 10 feet tall discovered in Minnesota. Some accounts describe rows of oversized teeth, double rows of teeth, and even extra fingers, features considered beyond normal human variation. Several reports also claim these remains were sent to the Smithsonian Institution. 3. The Smithsonian allegations. Central to the giant cover-up theory is the belief that the Smithsonian Institution played a direct role in collecting and concealing this evidence. Researchers claim that numerous skeletons, often accompanied by artifacts, were shipped to the Smithsonian where they vanished without public record. Key allegations include lost shipments. Numerous newspaper reports mention that artifacts and remains were sent to the Smithsonian, but were never heard of again. Early anthropologists' bias. Many 19th century scientists were committed to the theory that Native Americans had no connection to the advanced civilizations found in Central and South America. The existence of a pre-Indian giant race might have threatened that model. Destruction of artifacts. In the early 1900s, the Smithsonian reportedly conducted a purge of non-standard or embarrassing artifacts that didn't fit the accepted evolutionary or historical paradigms. While these claims are difficult to prove, proponents argue that such suppression was in service of a scientific orthodoxy that couldn't tolerate anomalous data. 4. Theories about the giants' origins. Supporters of the Lost Giants theory have various beliefs about where these beings came from and how they fit into human history. Some of the most common ideas include The Nephilim theory. This biblical explanation ties the giants to the Nephilim, beings mentioned in Genesis 6 verse 4. There were giants in the earth in those days, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men. According to this view, fallen angels mated with human women, producing giants with supernatural strength and unnatural traits, like 6 fingers or double rows of teeth. After the flood, some Nephilim supposedly survived or returned, possibly migrating to the Americas. B. Pre-Adamic civilizations. Some researchers believe these giants were part of an advanced pre-Adamic civilization that flourished before recorded history. Their remains and megalithic structures, like mound complexes or out-of-place artifacts, are seen as remnants of this forgotten epoch. C. Hyperborean or Atlantean survivors. In another theory, the giants were survivors of Atlantis or Hyperborea, legendary lost continents. These beings, possibly technologically advanced, colonized the Americas and built vast earthworks before dying out or being overthrown. 5. Archaeological and skeletal evidence. Advocates often cite a pattern of findings that have either disappeared, been discredited, or were never fully explained. The Lovelock Cave, Nevada, excavated in the early 20th century, the cave reportedly contained oversized bones, sandals measuring 15 inches, and duck decoys over 2,000 years old. While mainstream archaeology acknowledges the cave's importance, the claims of giants are hotly contested. Ohio and Mississippi Valley mounds. Excavations of ancient burial mounds reportedly revealed individuals between 7 and 10 feet tall, with abnormally large skulls, often in hierarchical burial formations. Double rows of teeth. Some accounts mention skulls with 2 rows of teeth, suggesting genetic anomalies, or to some hybrid origins. However, very few of these skeletons or skulls exist today for public analysis. Critics argue that misidentification, exaggeration, and poor excavation techniques account for the anomalies. Others see a pattern of systemic removal or destruction. 6. Academic skepticism and counterarguments. Mainstream archaeologists and anthropologists have largely dismissed the lost giants theory. Their arguments include: no verified giant skeletons. No museum or university has authenticated or displayed giant remains consistent with the legends. Misinterpretation and hoaxes. Many 19th century reports may have been hoaxes, exaggerations, or misinterpretations of large Native American skeletons, often over 6 feet tall for the time. Mound builder controversy. Early American scholars once theorized a lost white race, built the mounds to deny Native Americans their heritage. This racist pseudoscience was debunked, but the giants theory is seen by many as a continuation of that myth. Scientific conservatism versus conspiracy. Scholars argue that lack of evidence does not equal suppression. Institutions require rigorous standards for proof. A real cover-up would need widespread complicity and silence from thousands of academics worldwide, a logistical improbability. Despite these points, proponents argue that academic institutions have too much invested in current theories to accept radical reinterpretations of history. 7. The role of the Internet and alternative media. In the digital age, theories about ancient giants have gained massive traction. YouTube documentaries, independent researchers, and fringe websites have become the primary vehicles for reviving old reports and promoting new discoveries. Books like Giants on Record by Jim Vieira and Hugh Newman, The Ancient Giants Who Ruled America by Richard J. Deworst, have introduced thousands to the lost giants theory, often citing forgotten newspapers, excavation records, and eyewitness accounts. TV shows like Ancient Aliens and America Unearthed have also given airtime to the idea, blending it with narratives of extraterrestrial contact and lost civilizations. 8. Why would giants be covered up? The alleged motivations for such a cover-up are varied. Preserving the standard model, giant skeletons would challenge the accepted timeline of human evolution and migration to the Americas. Undermining religion or supporting it. Depending on perspective, revealing Nephilim-like beings could either undermine secular science or confirm biblical accounts, both potentially destabilizing. Control of historical narrative. Institutions might resist revising history due to political, academic, or ideological implications. Some even suggest secret societies or elite groups benefit from hiding ancient knowledge about humanity's origins and destiny. 9. Cultural impact and symbolism. Whether giants existed or not, their idea resonates powerfully in the human psyche. They symbolize lost power and forgotten glory, a civilization greater than ours now fallen. Hybridization and corruption. Many legends depict giants as dangerous offspring of forbidden unions. Suppressed truth. Giants are often a metaphor for hidden knowledge, something powerful that institutions don't want you to know. In this sense, the giants represent more than a historical claim. They embody a challenge to accepted authority and a yearning to rediscover a forgotten truth. 10. Final thoughts. Myth, truth, or both? So, did ancient giants once walk the lands of North America? The answer remains controversial, caught in a tug-of-war between mainstream science and alternative inquiry. There is no irrefutable scientific proof of 10-foot humans ruling ancient America. Yet, the persistence of stories, the volume of anecdotal reports, and the disappearance of physical evidence compel deeper investigation. The possibility that institutions have selectively ignored or even destroyed inconvenient discoveries, though extreme, is not entirely outside the realm of historical precedent. In the end, the lost giants of America may represent more than physical beings. They are symbols of what lies buried in the human past, hidden not only beneath the earth, but within the guarded halls of official history. The Lost Giants, uncovering the 19th century American skeleton reports. In the shadows of history lies a curious and controversial narrative, one that weaves together frontier-era exploration, archaeological mystery, and mythic storytelling. From the mid-19th century into the early 20th, newspapers across the United States frequently printed sensational headlines claiming that skeletons, many over 7 feet tall and some reportedly as tall as 10 to 12 feet, had been unearthed in ancient burial mounds, caves, and forgotten tombs across the North American landscape. These stories, many of which focused on the Mississippi Valley, the Ohio River region, and far-flung locations like Nevada's Spirit Cave, paint a tantalizing picture of a lost race of giants whose presence once haunted the early American past. But how much of this narrative is rooted in fact? And how much was shaped by folklore, flawed archaeology, journalistic sensationalism, and the evolving mythos of a young, expanding America? The origin of the giant skeleton stories. The roots of these stories can be traced to the 1800s, a period when America was rapidly expanding westward. This era saw the rise of amateur archaeology, antiquarian curiosity, and a public hungry for wonder. Many settlers came across vast earthen mounds, some overgrown, others appearing like natural hills, dotting the American Midwest and South. These were the remnants of the ancient mound-building cultures, such as the Adena, Hopewell, and Mississippian peoples, whose complex societies and ceremonial burial traditions predated European contact by centuries. When these mounds were opened either out of curiosity or for farming and construction, skeletons were often found buried within them. Early reports, many written by local observers or newspaper editors with little archaeological training, frequently described these bones as giant in stature. A striking example comes from the New York Times, May 4, 1856, which reported on a mound excavation in East Wheeling, Virginia, now West Virginia, where workers allegedly discovered numerous skeletons, one measuring over 8 feet tall. Another report from the St. Paul Pioneer Press in 1888 claimed the Smithsonian had sent researchers to investigate a Minnesota burial site that contained the remains of 7 giants, each over 7 feet tall. These weren't isolated cases. Similar headlines appeared across the country. Giant skeletons found in Iowa, Iowa State Register, 1897. 9-foot skeletons dug up near Clearwater, Clearwater Times, 1912. Skeletons of a giant race unearthed in Wisconsin Mound, the Chicago Tribune, 1915. Each of these accounts added another layer to the growing narrative that a forgotten race of prehistoric giants once roamed the American heartland. 2. The Spirit Cave and the Nevada Legends. Among the more enduring examples often cited in these tales is the Spirit Cave in Nevada. In 1940, not the 1800s but frequently folded into the same narrative, archaeologists discovered the remains of a man buried in a rock shelter near Fallon, Nevada. Dubbed the Spirit Cave Mummy, the remains were incredibly well preserved due to the dry environment and were dated to over 10,000 years old. While the individual was not of giant stature, he measured around 5 feet 2 inches. The discovery was revolutionary in terms of age, predating most known North American mummies. However, local Paiute legends of the Sitaj, giant, red-haired cannibals who warred with native tribes, were soon grafted onto the Spirit Cave findings. This blend of legend, misunderstood archaeology, and sensational storytelling helped elevate the Spirit Cave in the public imagination as a site connected to America's mythical giants. 3. The role of newspapers and sensationalism. In the 19th century, newspapers were often less concerned with rigorous fact-checking than with selling copies. The concept of yellow journalism was in full swing, with editors unafraid to exaggerate, embellish, or outright invent stories to captivate their readers. Archaeological digs became a popular source of intrigue, especially when they involved mysterious relics or large skeletons. Given the lack of standardized measurements, poor preservation methods, and misinterpretation of skeletal remains, early reports often mistook bone size or placement as evidence of gigantism. Skulls with pronounced brow ridges, abnormal teeth, or elongated crania were often described as non-human or giant in origin. Additionally, the growth of national pride and the search for a distinctly American prehistory likely played a role. Many settlers wanted to believe that the land they were claiming had once been home to great civilizations, possibly even older or more advanced than those of the Old World. The notion that ancient giants had walked the valleys of the Mississippi and been buried in mounds lent a mythical grandeur to the emerging American identity. 4. The Smithsonian conspiracy theory. One of the most persistent subnarratives to emerge is the accusation that the Smithsonian Institution played a role in covering up the discovery of giant skeletons. Numerous articles and fringe publications have alleged that the Smithsonian either destroyed or buried these remains to preserve the mainstream narrative of human history and evolution. For instance, a 2014 satirical article by World News Daily Report falsely claimed that the U.S. Supreme Court had ordered the Smithsonian to release classified documents proving the deliberate destruction of giant skeletons in the early 1900s. Despite being fictional, the article went viral and continues to be cited by conspiracy theorists today. The Smithsonian has denied these claims repeatedly. In truth, many early bones collected were either misidentified, poorly stored, or eventually lost, common issues in early archaeology. Yet the idea of a powerful institution suppressing knowledge of a lost race of giants remains appealing to many who distrust official narratives. Reinterpreting the mound builders. The mound-building cultures of North America were, for a long time, misunderstood and even denied credit for their achievements. In the 19th century, many Americans, particularly those influenced by Eurocentric ideas, refused to believe that Native Americans could have built the elaborate mound structures found across the Midwest and South. This prejudice gave rise to the mound builder myth, which suggested that an earlier, superior race, often imagined as giants, ancient Hebrews or Atlanteans, must have created these earthworks before being destroyed by the ancestors of modern native tribes. These ideas were deeply rooted in racial and cultural biases. Only in the 20th century did archaeologists fully acknowledge that the mounds were the work of complex indigenous societies. The narrative of giants, however, continued to survive in the margins of public thought, folklore, and alternative history communities. 6. Scientific explanations, mistakes, misidentifications, and anomalies. While the skeletons reported were often said to measure between 7 and 12 feet in height, scientific analysis suggests a range of possible explanations. Measurement errors. Early measurements could be distorted by bone placement, soil shifting, or exaggerated reporting. It's easy to mistake a tall skeleton for a giant when context is lost. Pathological conditions. Conditions such as gigantism or acromegaly could produce individuals significantly taller than average. A small number of such cases in ancient populations would be notable, but not necessarily evidence of a separate race. Animal bones misidentified as human, large femurs or skulls belonging to prehistoric animals like mastodons were sometimes mistaken for human remains. Grave goods and elongation practices. Many ancient cultures practiced cranial deformation, which could make skulls appear alien or unusually large. Combined with decorative burial items and other anomalies, this contributed to exaggerated descriptions. Despite these rational explanations, the stories of giants refused to die. 7. Giants in myth, religion, and pop culture. Another reason the giant skeleton narrative endures is its resonance with ancient mythologies. Nearly every culture contains stories of giants, from the Nephilim of the Hebrew Bible to the Titans of Greek mythology and the frost giants of Norse lore. These beings are often cast as godlike, destructive, or the first rulers of the earth. The biblical passage in Genesis 6 verse 4 states, "There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men." For many believers in a literal interpretation of Scripture, the discovery of giant skeletons seemed to confirm these ancient texts. Some fringe historians even connect American mound sites with a post-flood Nephilim migration. Modern television shows like Ancient Aliens and America Unearthed have rekindled public interest in these themes, blending archaeology with mythology, and further blurring the line between historical record and speculative storytelling. Fact, fiction, and the enduring allure of giants. While the bulk of scholarly consensus holds that no race of giants ever existed in North America, the stories persist, because they speak to something deeply human, a fascination with the unknown, the monumental, and the mythical. The skeletons of giants that populated 19th century headlines likely represent a combination of exaggerated measurements, misunderstood remains, and myth-making. Yet they also serve as cultural artifacts in their own right, snapshots of an era when American identity was being forged in tandem with exploration and wonder. Whether as metaphors for lost greatness, misunderstood ancestors, or literal titans of the past, the giants of the American mounds remain firmly embedded in our collective imagination. They remind us that history is not just a record of facts, but a mirror for the dreams, fears, and aspirations of those who tell it.